Oh, ooh, just scared me. Oh my God. So congratulations, you're an author.
Thank you.
I am so excited to be able to do this event with you and celebrate your novel, your latest novel. Um, so I don't think people know this, but you and I went to college together.
Yep. I know. I was wondering, I was like, should we bring this up? We probably
Oh,
should.
absolutely. Yeah. So my name is Zoraida Cordova. I'm the author of YA novels. I write YA, I write fantasy. My latest book is called The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina. It comes out in September. And yeah, and Justine and I went to college together. We went to Hunter College in New York City. And we're still buds. So
and we were in writing class together.
exactly. So we shared a writing was it that was which teacher was that? Was that
two, I think. We did or did we have the same teacher twice?
I think we had the same teacher twice.
Yeah. And
Was
now
it?
why is his name disappearing from my brain right now?
Me too. Oh my God. Hold on. I'm joking. I email with him still.
Exactly. I'm
David.
Yeah, that's all I remember right now.
I literally just blanked out on my poor professor's last name and I just talked to him. This is gonna bother me, David. And now my computer's going slow. It's fine. I'll figure it out. We'll find it. So David Wynn, Professor Wynn.
There we go, Professor Wynn. And we did 2 fiction workshops together, right? And
yeah.
So I read I'm still wondering when that bridesmaids zombie story is going to happen because I really want it.
No, I will still write that book. I really want to write my Bridesmaids versus Zombies book. It is literally what it sounds like. I think that every couple of years the zombie trend recycles, and so I just got to wait for the next batch.
Totally do it because I remember that stuck in my head. I don't think I remember anyone else's projects from any point in the class, but I definitely remember that one.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. I appreciate it. It's definitely in my repertoire. So talk about, let's pitch your novel. It just came out a couple of days ago. And so it's still fresh. It should still be fresh in your mind, but you wrote it a long time before that. So pitch everybody your book and then we'll get going.
Okay. So my book is Never Say Never, and it is a YA romantic comedy with fantasy, with a sprinkling of fantasy. And it is about a girl who suffers through her parents' divorce and swears off love. And she does not know, while she is actively swearing off love, that one of her friends is Aphrodite in disguise. And she decides this is a challenge and she is going to make Bryn fall in love. She's going to find the guy for Bryn. And in the process, kind of drives her crazy. So that is.
Oh my God, I love it. I love everything with Greek mythology. I feel like you were also this is a continuation of what you were writing at Hunter, correct?
I had a different Greek mythology idea in Hunter, but yeah, there was something. I mean, I don't know. It was kind of awful, so I don't think I'm going to go back to it. But yeah. I've always had an interest in Greek mythology, so they pop up in my story.
What is it about Greek mythology that really gets you going?
I think it's the completely fallible gods that I just find so interesting. It's not like this all-powerful and completely perfect group of people, or beings rather, but they're so flawed, and they're the jealousy and the temperamental behavior, and I'm gonna just turn this person into a flower just because I'm mad.
And then I'm gonna have sex. I'm gonna turn it into a flower, and then I'm gonna have sex with it.
It's okay, sure, but it's all those weird random things that they do that I just find so interesting, and played in a lot to this idea of how how they would react to regular people if they were forced to really interact with like modern people. And I just think I thought of this idea that about Bryn, my main character, just because I felt like it would be a lot of fun to have somebody who really loved love have to deal with somebody who just no. And that's that's really her personality. She's like, no, I don't want this. It's not what you think it is. It's awful. And so they have just completely separate, different opinions that they're trying to push down each other's throats. And it makes for a fun relationship between the two of them.
I love that. I feel like, so for me, Greek mythology is so, it's essentially making the divine fallible and human, right? And I feel like the reason I go to it is mostly because of the reasons that you said, but also because of the magic aspect of it, right? Like you know, we can continue to reinvent these stories over and over again. And you know, you can take Aphrodite and make her a human girl's best friend, which is what I actually, I love the nod on the cover, the little clam on her hair, which is so cute. And so I think that, yeah, so Greek mythology is really, really able to stretch, which is why you could do this like romantic comedy about a girl who needs love, like love lessons from the goddess of love. You touched a little bit about this, but when you were writing this book, did you immediately have Aphrodite, like the storyline, ready to go, or was it something that like you ended up to her in like through a different road or a different vehicle?
I had two separate story ideas. I had a story about a young girl who was dealing with her parents' divorce and who was very jaded. And then I had this, I really want to write a Greek mythology story. And they were both going on sort of at the same time. And I had said it before like a gazillion times, but I can't write normal things. Like if it's normal, average, everyday sort of things like regular contemporary, I get bored. So I just sort of was like, what if we threw one of the Greek gods into this story? And Aphrodite made the most sense right off the bat. Like I was like, if we're dealing with love and relationships, it's got to be her. So, and it built from there.
I mean, definitely not Hera. So
Hera would be, I think, in total agreement with Bryn.
Relationships
are awful. And
book over.
Yep.
Absolutely. So this is not the first book that you have written, but it is your latest one. What does your writing process look like? Because you've written fantasy before, like more like magical fantasy, fantasy,
yeah,
right? Where this is like fabulism or contemporary fantasy, or you know, real life with a twist. So walk us through how they're different, or the process that you have come to develop because of that.
Well, they're very different in that I didn't have to really world build here. I kind of already had my world, and it was, you know, I did have to sort of create the town, which is actually based on their little small town is actually based on Cold Spring, New York, upstate. But it's that, but, and the other one I had to do, I have for the Order of the Key, it's sort of a dual world kind of situation. So we have, you know, real life, and then beneath real life, there's this magical world that nobody knows about that's hiding. And so I had to create a whole magic system for that. And I had to create all of the different abilities and all of the different like lore in that world, because they all have like, oh, in the past they have this book that they refer to, and so that all had to come from scratch pretty much. And so this one was a little bit, it was an easier write in that I didn't have all of that weighing on me, but it was a way more like, it was a way more well, it was easier, it was really interesting because it was like just really fun to play with the characters. But I think as far as writing process goes, they're all kind of similar aside from that. Whereas I basically come up with an idea, a sort of like scarecrow, no, like skeleton-esque idea rather. And then I'm like, so I know like 3 or 4 things that need to happen through the course of the story, and I jot them down. And then for like a few months, I'll just sort of sit there in that document that I have where I jotted down those things, and I'll just add bits and pieces as I go, as I think of them. Oh, you know what? I think this character should wear this outfit in one of the scenes, or I think this character should say this line because that totally sounds like something I think would come out of her mouth. And it sort of evolves from there, that after a few months, then I go and I'll look at it again and I'll really sit down and start nailing the plot points in place and getting down like the steps of the story. And and then after that, it's sit down and write the dang thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have, from all the things, well, first of all, I want to say, for everybody watching us right now, we're going to do Q&A a little bit later. So start asking questions in the chat box, and make sure it's the chat box so that we can, not the chat box. Is there a Q&A thingy?
Wait, I think we did that.
Can I see I can't see the Q&A box, but in the chat box, just put it, just leave your questions and we'll go through them. But back to what we were just talking about, do you have a favorite part of that section? Like, cause I know it's different and you have to do so much more world building and the clothes and this and that, but do you prefer one over the other?
I don't actually. I think that each story kind of has its own unique thing. And I like to sort of live in that world at the time when I'm working on it. And it is hard to transition from one to the other. Like, I'm back to writing the sequel to The Order of the Key. And it was a little bit jarring because it was just such a different kind of world. And there was like much less humor and I had to readjust. But I really do love the entire process. And I think my favorite part is, oddly, and I guess this makes sense since I'm an editor, but it's the editing process, going back through it and finding and enhancing what's working and taking out the stuff that's not really gelling and just making it more streamlined and better. And that part, I love that. I'm fascinated by doing that part of the process.
I think that's one of my favorite parts as well. I love the editing part. I think all of my friends think I'm masochistic because of that.
It's the hardest part. It is, but it
absolutely is. It's like you're literally breaking a story and trying to make it, you're breaking a story and trying to make it better. And that to me is just fascinating. So, okay, walk us through your writing journey. Did you always know that this is something that you wanted to do?
No, I used to want to act. Yeah, I actually did
that.
I did for a very short time, which is why I went to college. Like, I'm a bit older than you, and that's why when we met, I was back in college after like leaving because I didn't want to act anymore because I used to be a theater major, and then coming back and coming back for writing. So I started out I decided that I didn't like being judged by my physical appearance and I wanted to be judged by my brain. And I always loved getting into characters' heads. And that was the part of the acting process that I actually enjoyed, was the idea of like basically putting on this suit of a person and, becoming them and thinking like them and all of that. And that was something that since I always told stories and I had family members who liked to write and I always loved to spin a tale, that sort of morphed into me writing and putting on those people, but in a written sense versus.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. And then I went to school and stopped and started and stopped and started. And then I had my son. And I suffered from postpartum depression and my son had colic and I went a little bit mad. I mean, it was a rough few months. And when I was done with it, when I came out of the other side and my son was happy and I was feeling more stable, I looked at him and I thought, I can do this because I did this. I can write this book because I was able to get through this, and I can do anything. You know, it was a moment of like, I can, if I just push through it, I can do it. Because before that I'd stop because I was scared and I would think I'm not doing that well and I don't even know if I want this. And by the time I made it out of the other side of that, I was like, yeah, this is who I want to be. And I'm just going to push through it and do it. And if I face trouble on the way, then I'll get through that too. And
yeah, you're like, I just had a literal, you're just like, I had a literal baby. I can have brain babies too.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. So, okay, so you stopped and started. Did your writing change at all while, you know, we went through this hellscape of a year, 2020? I mean, even before that, but you know, I felt like the elephant in the room for writers is always COVID, right? I wrote several books while under a pandemic, not because I wanted to, but because I had to work. You know, it's work, it's a job, and it's a contract. So I felt like I was like forcing myself to work, and you know, battling that, being creative while it's your job, you know, it's really hard. But how did the pandemic change your writing, if at all? Or were you just like, and was it still an escape somehow?
It was still an escape. I do feel though, like there is, when unfortunately, not to be the bummer in the room, but I mean, so many people are sick and dying, and especially living in New York and how bad, I mean, I'm a city girl, you know, and having that taken away and being, you know, as much as I was saying before everyone started coming in, but I do love being at home. I love my city too. And watching what was happening to it was extremely difficult. And I did love to run into my stories, but it also gave me a sense of, this isn't life or death. And it took some of the pressure off of me trying to be super perfect and judging myself, or like, it was like, reality, this is a story that you're telling. And yes, it's a career and it's important, but it is also a story that you're telling, and you can always fix that. There are retakes and do-overs, and, you know, don't take yourself so seriously that you're like unable to work. So
Right.
it's not easier.
It's such a hard balance. It's a hard balance to maintain, being creative and having to meet a deadline, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I was lucky in that I didn't, I mean, I know you, and you have like a gazillion deadlines at any given time. I was lucky in that this is my second book, and the most I was trying to really push out during the pandemic was the sequel for the Order of the Key, and the edits for this one both fell during the pandemic. And I feel like the benefit, I mean, if it had been another time, I don't know if it would have been easier or not. But like, while I was at home and working from home, and I was home, like my son was home throughout he never went back to school. He's still homeschooled until next year. So my son was home and I was home, and I was trying to write and do my day job and also take care of my son. And of course my husband, you know, is awesome, and thankfully, and he helps a gazillion tons. And so there's no, you know, I'm not doing it alone. But I, you know, was running through all of these things during the day, and I felt like, wow, I'm, you know, I don't know if it's got easier or if it got more difficult, because I didn't have my commute, but I also didn't have the inspiration of being out and around people. And I feel like there's something really essential to being surrounded by people and listening to people talk, to just make your conversations and things like that more real. So it was a struggle. I think I've gotten to this point now where I'm like, I've hit my stride and I'm ready to deal with it. But at first I know that there was an adjustment period where I was like, I don't think on my own anymore, because my son is with me 24 hours a day. And I haven't spoken to another adult besides my husband in blank number of like days, weeks. And I was like, I don't know how to write characters anymore. I think I've lost it, but I figured it out. So it was just a little hiccup that I needed to get through.
No, you're good. You're good. You're definitely not. You get through everything. You get through
Yeah.
everything. Is basically what I'm trying to say. So I have a few more questions, but I think we're getting a lot of audience questions. So I think I'm going to go to those instead.
Okay.
Some of them overlap anyway. Um, okay. So Paulette asks, who was your favorite character to write and why?
Bryn was my favorite character because Bryn has a little bit of young me. She's equal parts me and my sister Megan. And to the point where I've been telling this story because I love it. My sister read it, and as she was going through it, she like was making little editorial comments and stuff, and she pops in oh, Bryn should do this, and it happened 2 pages later. And I was like, wow, I really got you, didn't I? I really nailed that character down because she was totally very much like if me and my sister were like merged
The
together.
same person. Oh my God.
We're almost the same person anyway, but it was really funny to write her just because she was me without a filter on my mouth. And I was always a little awkward as a kid, and in my head I think these things when people were annoying me or bullying me or treating me a certain way. I think these things and I go, no, I'm not going to say that. Like, I don't feel right saying that.
But Bryn can say it.
Bryn says it. Bryn says everything on her head, even when it's a bad idea. And that's what makes her fun. So I loved writing her.
I love that. So one of the questions was actually, where did you find the inspiration for Bryn? But that kind of answers it. So instead, did anyone else, the hero, right? Was he inspired by somebody, or you have to make Aphrodite human, at least even a little bit, right? To bring her down to earth. So did she have any inspirations from anybody close to you as well? Or were you just like, no, sex, love, goddess?
She was sort of, yeah, she was, I made her very, like, I've had friends before that behave in that I love and when they're in the good relationship and it's off the wall like levels of I love. And
I know
that's where I channeled it from. Like, I was like, oh, okay. Like a girlfriend, like the girlfriend that is like just so happy that she can't stop talking about her boyfriend. That's Aphrodite. Like that was what I pulled from. But the best friend in the story, Nina, is totally my best friend Joy. Not obviously not exactly, but in the same area too. Like we
take liberties.
Exactly. They become seeds of the character. But Nina, who the book is also dedicated to Joy, because so much of the story is about female friendship, and Nina is Bryn's soulmate more than any boy could ever be. And that message, that was very much me and my best friend. My best friend and I have known each other since we were 14. And that's 38 and counting now. So we've known each other for a long time. And she's just like, I can literally say, get me the thing from the thing on the thing, and she'll know what I'm talking about. And that's, it's perfect. So that, like, I drew a lot from that.
I love that. I think that for every writer, it's like an amalgamation of different people that we meet. I know that for when I was younger, like in my early 20s, I was like, oh, you were mean to me, I'm gonna kill you off in this book. I feel like I've probably grown a little bit, and maybe I'm a little bit more emotionally mature, probably not. But I like to think I am. I haven't done that in a very long time, or maybe I'm just writing different books.
Maybe they don't play it anymore. I don't so much do that. I do, though, have a tendency to like I have in the back, in the acknowledgements, I say to all the boys I hated before,
Nice.
because there are so many guys that cycle through this that have either been like ridiculous caricatures in my life that have popped up, or have tried to date my best friend, or have tried to, and like just ridiculous behavior that for a man, and sometimes for adult men, that I just had to like write something about it. So while Bryn is going on her series of dates that she's forced on by Aphrodite, there are some characters that show up that are a little bit the I'm gonna kill you off in my book types, except I don't kill them, I just character assassinate them. Um,
I love it. I love it. See, we all need to be just a little bit petty. It's fine. It's totally
I'm okay
fine.
with it.
um, so there's a technical question, but I want to go through the character questions here. I think this is your husband.
Oh, you mean the essay on the side there? Yeah, that's him.
Yeah. Ismail is asking, I would love to see a series of books that focus on different Greek gods and how they adapt to human life and why. Maybe a spinoff could follow a different god. Hermes would probably be pretty interesting. Agreed. What do you think, Justine?
I have not actually really thought it through. I've had this conversation with him, which is really funny since he wrote it like he does not have any clue.
It's fine. We all need planted questions, okay? It's part of it.
But yeah, I've thought of it because I got asked if I was ever going to write a sequel to this book, and I was like, Bryn's story is really wrapped in this story. So I thought, no, I don't have a sequel for this. But and honestly, Val, who is the human version of Aphrodite, her character arc is pretty wrapped by the end of this book too. So yeah, it would have to definitely be, if I was going to do something like that, it would have to be another Greek god. I haven't really put in the level of research because if I do it, I really want to make sure that I am really embroiled in all of the stories about that specific god, like I was in Aphrodite's. So I would have to do some research and some reading again to like decide where I would go with it.
Which one?
Some ideas.
I mean, I think that like one of the best parts about Greek mythology is that there's so much creative license when it comes to them, as long as you stay true to the heart of the story. Like, I don't know if you've read Song of Achilles.
I have it on my list.
By Madeline Miller. Oh man, I mean, she retells Patroclus and Achilles' story, and that's one of my favorite books of all time. But her translation of their story maintains a heart, but it's not always, it's not the Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston version of Troy. You know what I mean? But it's definitely worth reading. Oh my God. And I definitely agree with you about when it comes to research. What was the research that you primarily did for this book?
I have a really huge book of Greek myths. I have a couple of them, and I was just reading through all of the Aphrodite myths to kind of get an idea of what really like what elements I wanted in her character, especially because if she was going to be the antagonist, which I don't consider her a villain really for this story, but I do definitely consider her the antagonist in the story. And if she was going to be that, I wanted to make sure that I knew what limits she would go to and what would push those buttons specifically. And because she really does end up being, as the story evolves, kind of a thorn in Bryn's side, even though they're still sort of friends. And it's difficult for them. So I definitely wanted to know her character and what would push her and what would make her really become almost a villain. So I knew how far to push her and like what events to bring up to make that happen. And that was really where my research was, because I kind of figured I was really reinventing what I wanted her to be. Because she was a high school student, and in the story, she's been out of Mount Olympus for many, many, many years and has been living amongst humans for a long time. But this is the first group of humans that she really feels a connection to. So she invests herself in them, whereas before she was sort of jumping from group to group and not really getting involved. And so I wanted to make sure that if I was going to take a version of Aphrodite and have her be touched by humanity despite herself, I wanted to make sure I knew how that would look for her.
What is it about Bryn and her circle of friends that made Aphrodite stay?
It's that she gets very close to, she's actually pretends to be a foster child, and that's how she ends up moving from place to place. So what ends up happening is she ends up living with her foster sister, Nina, who is Bryn's best friend. And it's Nina really that connects her to the rest of them, because Nina and Adam, because Adam, who is our male sort of romantic lead, Adam falls for falls for Val, because he is an outsider. His mother, this small town where everyone knows each other, his mother passed away. And everyone's all, I'm sorry. And so he sort of detaches himself from everybody, because they all knew his mom, and his mom was like the pediatrician of the town. And so he feels like, okay, everyone is just sympathy for me. And this new girl comes, and the two of them sort of like lock onto each other because they're the oddballs. And that makes, in getting to know Val, and getting to know Adam and Nina, she feels grounded there. However, there's Bryn too, who she does like, but Bryn is sort of the anti-Val. And so that she doesn't so much stick to Bryn as kind of feel like she's like a lesson that needs to be taught.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. It's like having your own personal foil, you know, for the entire story.
And they just like, they frustrate the hell out of each other through the whole thing.
I love it. Did you have a favorite scene between them at all?
There is a scene in
without spoilers.
It's early on. There is a scene later on, but I'm not going to talk about that, just because it is really spoilery. But there is a scene early on where she talks about, like, Val is talking about how beautiful love is, and how beautiful it makes the world. And Bryn is basically like, love is like an atom bomb. It is a man-made thing, and it is, it is destructive. And their argument back and forth about, as they both try to convince Nina, because Nina has just broken up with her long-term boyfriend, which is another springboard into this whole I hate love Bryn thing. As Val tries to immediately like turn Nina out the door and go, okay, date again. And Bryn's like, oh no, we're not doing this. As they fight over what Nina's gonna do, they get very defensive and angry with each other and throw out a bunch of terrible things to each other. And it is such a good argument, and I feel like shows you exactly who each character is. And it was just one of those scenes, and I know you know what I mean, where you start it and then all of a sudden it's done and it's perfect. It comes out like fully formed, and you're like, oh my God, that was like easy. And that almost never happens. But when it does, it's beautiful. That was that scene that came out like magic. And then like all of a sudden, like I just like wrote a chapter and then it was done. And I was like, wow, okay. I didn't even once go, oh God, as I was writing it, which sometimes you do. You're like, okay, I have no idea how to write what I'm trying to say here. But
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
This was easy.
Oh my God. So let me pivot to more technical questions. Lainey asks, what is harder, writing or working in an ice cream shop?
Yeah, because the ice cream shop they all work at, which is why there's ice cream everywhere in the book, is writing is definitely easier because I hate physical labor, and an ice cream shop is standing on your feet for hours and bending things.
Writing is such physical labor. You know that I got a frayed tendon last year from writing so much.
Oh my God.
I was like, I did, because it's not like I work out, right? Like I was having this pain in my shoulder, and I went to the doctor, and they're like, you have a frayed tendon on your shoulder. That's why you're in pain. And they're like, what do you do? Like physical activities? I'm like, no, I literally write. I wrote my shoulder off.
Oh my God. I didn't even know that was possible. That's special.
I mean, people tell me to stretch, and I'm just like, no, never mind. And I'm like, oh, right, my hip maybe that's why like my hip flexors are broken. It's fine. So Writing is
there that.
physical.
It is true, because I know like if I've been sitting hunched over my computer for too long, I have alarms set to make myself walk.
Yeah, I always ignore them. I'm just like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine.
Yeah, it depends on where I'm at. Like if I'm in one of those magic scenes, I'm like, yeah, no. But if I'm actually like, if I need the break anyway, and I'm sort of like looking at the paper going like, or looking at the cursor blinked on the screen, and I'm just like, okay, fine, I'll walk. Go away.
I love, yeah, it's nice. Hold on, let me try to get through the through line of this. So Carol asks, okay, some authors say writing the first line is the hardest process. Do you find that? Do you draft with or do you write as you go along?
I have never nailed an opening line in the first try. The Order of the Key, I wrote the opening line in final edits. I wrote the entire first chapter over, and that was when I nailed the opening line. But that was literally like before it was going to line edits. That was the last attempt. And I had rewritten that chapter like several times. I just couldn't nail it. For Never Say Never, the first line of the story was actually in the middle. And I realized as I was going through it, because the beginning wasn't working for anybody who read it. They were like, okay, it's good, but it needs something a little more kick. And I was trying to like think in the root of the story how that was going to work. And I was like, what if I just started with this line, and it's the line, and I'm going to just look at my book just to make sure I get it 100%.
Yeah,
right.
read us your first line.
It was, when I was 8, I told my best friend Nina I wish my parents would get a divorce. And that
Excellent.
That was somewhere in the middle of the book, when after like her parents are actually going to get the divorce. But when I thought about it, I was like, this is what this book is really about, is this idea, like it says here, this is this bitter kid who's just done with her parents.
I mean, that shows character from the jump. So
and that was why it was the right line. Like I realized it afterwards, but it never, I feel like you don't get that stuff right the first time, and maybe it's just me, but it always takes revision. And then I'm like, oh, okay, the thing clicks and it comes out right. But I feel like it's the first time it's just me like vomiting the story onto paper.
It's so funny. Like, this is why all writers are so different, because I literally cannot start writing a book until I have the first and last sentence written down.
Really?
Yeah. Every single book that I have written, it has been, I have a book that I've been thinking about for a decade, and I can't start writing it. It's still like, I still don't know the full plot. But I've been thinking about it since that's probably more than 10 years, since like, I keep forgetting how long ago college was. But yeah, so I just can't start. And I don't know why. It doesn't feel right for me. And meanwhile, all of my other friends, like some of my other friends, write out of order. And I also don't know how to do that, right? Like writing the middle first and then writing the opening later. It feels, my brain doesn't work like that.
That's the thing with writing, you always have to kind of go with like you can't really go with your muse, because that's not really like that. Only, like I said, that's those magic moments that pop up all of a sudden, and they're not always working, and they're not reliable. So instead you go with whatever works for you. And I used to do the out of order thing until I realized that I was changing everything when I would get to that part. So I was like, okay, well, writing it out of order is sort of like a waste of time. So
no, I do exercises where I start thinking, I'm like, I see the image and I write down what I'm trying to say. And sometimes it just doesn't work, and I have to put it away, and then I'll be walking, or, you do your best thinking in the shower, or
I'm a dishwashing
something. Yeah, I
wash dishes and then I get ideas.
That's why I like doing my dishes by hand. Also, I don't have a washing machine, but dishwasher. But even if I did, it's just that, it's the cleansing part, right? The cleansing, putting your brain on a cycle,
exactly,
which I think is really great. So yeah, thank you, Carol, for that question. That's excellent. What Belinda asks, what's been the high point of the publishing process for this book?
I've been working with a fantastic publisher, and Sword and Silk. I ended up being their first book, and I heard about them, and I heard when they were doing their crowdfunding for for their publishing company, and I was like, oh, this sounds great. And I sort of saw the submission thing. I was like, I'm going to give it a shot, and never I invested in the crowdfunding. Like, I didn't think I was going to be their first book, but here I am. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, and they did an amazing job, and they were just, from the editor to the cover artist to promotions, just every single part of it has been a collaborative process. I've been involved with everything. It's, what do you think about this? Do you think this would be good for, like, when they were putting together the book box for it? It was like, oh, what about this label? What do you think should be in it? What do you what kind of stuff do you want us to get? And it was just a really open, happy, friendly process, and I really did enjoy it. And it's one of the things that I really do love about working with a smaller group, is that I know everybody there, and I can just sort of bug them. Like I was saying before we got started, but like I was like sort of terrified of how the technical aspects of this was going to go, and just kept pinning the co-owner of the company with questions like, hey, what about this, or how is this going to work? And having that like super supportive group behind me that really just never turned away a question or acted like anything was like a waste of time, even if I felt like I was being annoying. They were just really awesome and supportive. And it ended up being like, because it was their first book, and it was, I had my big pride of my book baby being born. It was sort of like this we both win, and so we're both pushing it, and it really felt great to work with them. So that was really the high point.
I love that. That's so beautiful. Because you have your own support system.
Yeah.
And you have that attention to detail, which is wonderful. And it's so rare, publishing is such a big industry, but it's also so small at the same time. And, it feels like you're very lucky to have such a wonderful team.
Thank you. I think so too.
Yeah.
Some of them are,
I love that. Hold on. I was trying to look for, you already answered the research process question. Okay. What changed from the beginning of your story to the end that surprised you?
That's a good one. I can't give this without sort of spoiling a little, so I'm going to be really careful about how I word this.
Okay.
But I didn't know how Bryn would end up with in the end.
Oh.
I had an idea, and then somewhere in the middle, I actually felt like maybe I had it wrong, and I kind of played with it for a while and ended up shifting, not entirely, but changing a little bit about what I ended up wanting from the story.
Yeah. So do you not plot?
I do. That's the thing, I do. And then I got into I don't know how to say this without spilling.
I mean, well, sometimes you're just writing and it changes, right?
Yeah,
you just veer off.
I got to know some of the characters a little bit better, because you get the different idea as you're doing the thing, and then you have in like, yeah, Maria just said she's a militant plotter. I am. But when I have like 40-page outlines, I'm insane. But as I got to know the characters, I started questioning how I wanted things to turn out for Bryn, and almost made a shift. It made like a couple of little changes, but I decided to go back with what I ended up wanting to begin with. But there was a moment there where I was like, maybe I'll make her take this path instead. And I always do this, but I kind of wonder, like, I wish I could write alternate universe fics for my own.
You can write your own fan
fiction. Yes.
You could just make a pen name on AO3 and just say like, here are the alternate endings for this book.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not the first time I've done that, because I had the same thought for Order, where I was like reading, when I wrote it, I thought, I could totally turn things on its ear by doing this, and it would be a really interesting story too. And then I was just like, no, you can't do that. But I kind of like still want to know like how that would turn out. Maybe I will one day. I'll just write it down for fun.
This sort of ties in, I mean, this part of the discussion ties into Susan's question, which is about theme and how, you know, whether it's character driven or plot driven. And since you do like 40-page outlines, which so do I am an extensive outliner. I call it, I have like a roadmap. I teach a class for Lit Reactor, and I'll outline a book with my students and just go point by point of what I want the story to look like. But I'm always surprised at how sometimes, even though I am like the maniacal god of this world and all the worlds that I write, I still give moments for my characters to sort of veer off. And so is that sort of what happened despite your extensive outline?
Yes. That's, I feel like you kind of have to sort of let that flow, because then you can't kill your creativity. So you make all your plans. And I always say, like, there's a reason why you can delete things on your Google Docs. So like when I'm teaching, because I teach mine at Ride Hive, but yeah, I teach plotting classes and things like that. And I've always said, like, you can be strict to a certain extent, but you have to also let things flow. And if something comes out the way you want, you can always delete part of your outline and change it and make it fit this new direction that things turned in. Like, it's not set in stone. You don't have to stick with it. And I think that's important, because when you're writing a character, characters, it sounds silly. I know that a lot of people say this and it sounds like over the top and ridiculous, where they're like, the character just tells me what to do. There are times where
sometimes they do.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, this kind of person, they wouldn't react this way. And I wrote this in the outline, but I don't think that's how they would go. And suddenly the character is doing something else. And I'm like, oh, well, I just added like 2-3 chapters onto my story, but okay, I guess that's what we're doing now. I'll have to cut words from somewhere, but yeah, I mean,
it's something that happens. It's something that happens all the time. And I think that's when you know that the story works, because, you know, we say that the character is doing the driving, but you are the character. You're all of them.
Yeah, right. And then you're like, when the character does take over, that means that everything you put in place is real, because now you have a logical, they're not just a flat piece of paper where you can direct where they need to go. Like they're taking on a real personality, and it makes sense on its own, and you can't force it to do anything.
Absolutely. So I have a list of fun questions, which every time I do one of these, I just do this or that, you pick one or the other. There is a fun question over here, which I would like you to answer before we get started on the lightning round. Maria asks, if you had to be stranded on an island with one of your main characters, who would you choose and why?
I would choose Kip. Wait, it has to be this story. Sorry. Does it have to be?
Yeah, let's do this story because it's the book we're celebrating.
And I'm laughing because Maria thinks my reason for Kip is a different reason than what it is. Anyway, bad Maria. I would pick, who would I pick? I would pick Val. No, I wouldn't. That's a lie. Now I'm thinking out loud. Sorry. I want to say Val because she's magical and she has like some powers and she could help out with things. But then I think about actually.
Well, would she get you out of the island with her magic? Because she's able
to. But I also think that I would like probably want to like strangle her by the time we were off the island. So maybe that's not a good idea.
Right. No, less Deus Ex Machina. Like somebody with
I would say. I think it's a toss up between Nina and Adam, and that's because Nina is the most tolerable human to be around, but Adam is really smart and would probably be able to help me survive since I know jack shit about how to survive on an island. So
I think about it all the time. It is it's my anxiety spiral.
Is it?
Every time I'm on a plane, I'm like, if we go down, how do I survive this? Like that's where my mind goes.
It's funny because I actually was, speaking of doing research, I've been like sort of toying with a dystopian as I've been working on all of these books. Like I said, I outlined for like ages before I actually pick it up and start doing it. So that involves a lot of like survivalist knowledge. And so I've been
Yeah.
doing like little bits of research on, but I don't think I know enough or have committed enough to memory to survive on my own. So I would definitely need like some help. I think Nina would probably be the best, just the most comfortable person to be around, because she's just very friendly and helpful and just not like chirpy and frustrating and annoying.
Yeah. This is a tangent side note, but if you like, I don't know if you've watched The Wilds on Amazon Prime.
I haven't.
It is really good. It is literally this question: how do we survive on an island? It's a bunch of girls they're going to like basically a finishing school for young girls, and their plane goes down, and each episode is told from a different point of view of a different girl, and it's so good. It's like a lesson in character. I think it's really worth watching, especially if you want to, for YA.
Yeah, that sounds good. I want to check it out.
Yeah. Okay, so my lightning round questions are: don't think too much about it, just pick the one that feels right or the most natural to you, right? So this or that. Dystopian or fantasy?
Fantasy.
Vampires or unicorns?
Vampires.
Movie adaptation or TV adaptation of your own work?
Movie.
I would have thought that one would stump you.
It would be different if it was a different book, but for this one, definitely movie.
Okay. Dark fantasy or romantic comedy?
Romantic comedy.
Oh, see, like you just go. I would definitely be like, okay.
Well, you said no thinking.
Yeah, no thinking, just pick one. 100 ideas, but you have writer's block with each one, or one idea forever, but you can actually complete the book.
Ooh, that one's rough. And that's only one forever.
Yeah, it's just one idea. Like you have the one, like how there's,
All right, I'm gonna say the one idea because I would like the idea of getting through it, but that does hurt. Oof.
I mean, like Tolkien, I'm not saying Tolkien only had one idea, but it was like he has this one world that he did, forever.
Yeah, I mean, if I could have one world that I could work in, maybe, but I don't know. Yeah. That's hard.
And it's very hard. It's very hard. Villain with a heart of gold or a goody two shoes hero?
Villain with a heart of gold.
Loki forever. It's really like that's what I'm going with. Or it's like my Damon versus Stefan dilemma from Vampire Diaries.
I like people with a little more color. Like I like the like you don't want boring vanilla. Like I always get to ask the Superman versus Batman question, and I'm always like Batman because Superman's just a Boy Scout, and I like
I know.
Yeah, like too much vanilla is nah. You can't.
I know. We need a little. We need a
something
Baskin Robbins situation here.
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm trying to read my own handwriting now. Oh, this is the last one I have for this lightning round. Would you rather become a god or stay mortal?
Stay mortal.
Okay. I would definitely choose being a god.
I don't want to be like, I don't want to live past everybody I know. That's really my thing.
I always say like, I'll just make new friends every 70 years.
Oh, like Val.
Yeah, literally. So
I don't know. I would be sad. I'm too sentimental. Probably. And that's why I'm like, no.
And then you could be sad and mourn them forever. Like if I were a vampire, right? I would definitely choose vampirism versus staying mortal.
I would like the cool powers though.
Yeah. I feel like I would be a benevolent god for sure.
I mean, yeah, if I chose being a god, I would definitely be really nice about it. You have to pay that back to the universe somehow.
No wrathful vengeance over here. Oh my God. Okay. So we have like 4 minutes left. But I wanted to ask if there are any last final questions, because I do have a final question to ask you. But I'll give it a second to see if the chat comes in.
I'm gonna take while we're waiting. I'm gonna take this minute to promote my giveaways that I had running. So I've got 4. They're going on JustineManzano.com. I give instructions on how to enter each of them. One is a sign up for my newsletter. One is to fill out a Never Say Never themed word search. And there's one where you can take a personality quiz and just send the answer to me. I did my own Never Say Never, what character are you personality quiz.
Who did you get?
I got.
Who did you get? You got Bryn. Okay.
And I didn't even do that on purpose. I totally got Bryn. Actually, we thought it was broken for a minute because everyone I knew was getting Bryn, and then my son took it and got Nina. So,
oh my God.
But there's that, and then there's the one where I said if you came here, then I would give away to 2 people. I'm gonna draw tomorrow on those because it's just like this day has been too insane, and I don't have everything ready. But I will definitely draw those tomorrow and make announcements on my Twitter. So
I love it. Good.
Be fun.
My final question is also Marissa's final question, which is, what do you have coming up next? Can you say what you're working on? Or I know you're working on a sequel for Key.
That's really what it is. The Order of the Key is, okay, I see you, Susan. The Order of the Key is getting a sequel that I'm in the process of working on. It's supposed to be a trilogy, so there's that coming. But I have like a bunch of other things in the wings, and I'm deciding right now whether or not I want to like break in between the second book and the third and work on something else and then come back to it. I'm not sure yet. So, but
I mean, you have an entire pantheon of gods.
I do, and that's the other thing
with Ismael. So
that's the other thing. I need to like look and decide whether or not I'm going to make a sequel for this, or like not a sequel, but like a companion novel.
Companion, yeah, you could do companion novels. Absolutely.
But I have a bunch of other ideas that I've had floating around forever that haven't been written yet, and I will keep that in mind. But I'm also gonna like keep working on those and see what comes of them. So I'm not sure the order yet, but there will definitely be a sequel to The Order of the Key, and then possibly the third one after that, or with a break. We'll see.
Amazing. So you have so much stuff going on. I love it. I think that is it for the questions, but thank you so much for letting me spend one of your launch events with you.
Thank you so much for coming. This was fun and super easy. And didn't it all feel like song and dance?
Yeah, I mean, I know you said you were nervous, but you did so well.
Because I'm always nervous before these things, and like I'm pretty comfortable speaking to people, but like before I go on, I'm always like, am I going to say something completely dumb? Am I going to forget what I'm talking about in the middle? Like,
no,
see,
fine.
The last time I did one of these, I did it by myself, and I was just sort of talking to the Q&A, and I just could not focus. So I was like just staring at the Q&A the whole time. So this was a much better experience.
Where can everybody buy your book?
Never Say Never is available everywhere. You can get it from the Sword and Silk website. My website has JustineManzano.com has links to a bunch of places you can buy it, but it's really anywhere that books are sold. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all of that places. But if you want a signed copy of Never Say Never, Boogie Down Books is my bookstore in the Bronx, and they will ship it to you, and I will be signing a bunch of copies there. So if anybody
support your local bookstore,
that's where, I mean, I give the choice for everybody, but the signed bookstore, and also just everybody at Boogie Down Books is amazing and totally deserves your patronage. Yeah, because I love it. Some things for the neighborhood.
Well, amazing. So I wish you all the best with this new book, and happy writing. Do you have any summer plans for writing, or is it just like, do you take your time?
I just have finished my edits plans and like my self edits right now.
To get you in trouble with your editor or anything like that. I'm just curious.
No, I don't actually like, I mean, I'm not on like deadline for anything. So I'm just sort of figuring myself out right now and what I'm going to write next. And so there's no real actual plans, but we'll see.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for coming and watching and spending this hour with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
I'll hand it back.
Rebecca,
hand it-
the link for Boogie Down Books.
Oh, perfect. I'll give it back to Lainey to handle the behind the scenes stuff.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming.
I think Lainey might stop recording.
Oh.
Oh, you're muted.